move on to the panel questions. So this is the big question, right? So we'll start off with John. I think we'll do some commentary from each person on the line here and on the panel. But what's going on with trade policy? What's going on with the permanent magnet industry? This will address the first question from our audience also.
I'm glad John is answering that question.
Yeah, we'll kick it off with John, and I think we could all throw in a little bit. But obviously, all right, big picture, right? We've seen what's going on with tariffs since March and into April. We see that there's it's a volatile economic environment, especially pertaining to permanent magnets, to rare earths and permanent magnets. Currently, there's end-use certificates that are required by China. Currently, the Chinese magnet manufacturers, even us who have plants in China, have to apply for licenses to then export those materials out of China. So that is impacting the entire supply chain with some pretty big delays. So, John, I'm just kicking around the whole team. John, what are you seeing from your end on what's going on right now?
Okay. So tariffs are easy. You just pay more. The problem is on April 4th, which is, we're getting into 30 days ago now, the Chinese Commerce Department announced they were going to place export controls on the so-called dual-use rare earth materials and products. And by dual use, they mean things and items that have both commercial and defense applications and uses. So, this seemed to take, from my perspective, the magnet industry by surprise. I got to be frank. In my view, the real surprise was the industry was surprised, since, something like this has been signaled by the actions of the Chinese authorities for the last, few years. Now, the key magnet rare earth elements that are being targeted are samarium, of course, for samarium cobalt magnets, and samarium cobalt magnets themselves, and also the elements we mentioned earlier, the heavy rare earths, dysprosium and terbium, which are used in neodymium ion boron magnets to improve the thermal performance. So, all these materials and magnets are used in higher operating temperature applications, and probably, well, I know for sure, make up the majority of rare earth magnets used in defense applications. So, it's a pretty targeted action that the Chinese authorities have taken. So, as Aaron mentioned, the Chinese authorities are now requiring documentation that are basically requiring certification that the neodymium ion boron magnets contain no dysprosium or terbium. Now, what I'm hearing, it means they have to contain less than 0.1 weight% before they can issue an export license. And they are going to be, apparently, again, it's anecdotal, the authorities are going to be taking random audits of product that is claimed to not contain dysprosium and terbium and do chemical analysis. And of course, if you're caught trying to get around the rules here, the consequences could be pretty severe for the magnet manufacturer. For samarium cobalt and dysprosium terbium containing neodymium ion boron magnets, so that means magnets that contain more than 0.1 weight% dysprosium plus terbium, documentation is going to be required that describes, provides the name of the customer and details, and specifically what the end application is. If it's non-defense, then an export license, the best word I can think of is may be issued. However, this is moving really slowly, and the companies I've talked to as of today, shipments are still being held at the ports in China. To be honest, the timing and how this plays out is uncertain. But I welcome anybody else's perspective on this.
Yeah, really, really excellent points, and it continues to evolve. Halil, do you want to add anything to kind of what you're seeing out there, what you're hearing, from industry, from end users such as yourself?
So I'll address this question a little bit stepping back. I mean, to me, this is all about risk mitigation and risk management. As John alluded, I don't think this is a surprise. Perhaps that being rare earth magnet is a surprise, but even to me, that's not a surprise. It's been out there for a long time. It's been showing signals that it is coming or it could come, and here it is, right? So to me, when I look at risk mitigation, it all comes down to a couple of things. One, are there other sources than China? Well, guess what? Now, as I read Wall Street Journal every day, I'm starting to see companies trying to develop alternative materials to this with a similar type of design performances. So that's one thing. New sources, new materials. Companies like ourselves stock it up, before it hits it. So that's some of the mitigation tactics that we deploy. But at the end of the day, we have been, from a company point of view, as best as we can, right? Without really overturning this, how do we really mitigate risk for our customers and for ourselves? That's how we've been really operating, trying to decouple woodwork from those kinds of sources, materials all along as much as possible. I'm not going to say that we are totally exposed from it. We are in it, and we are all in it, right? But I think this is where working with partners like yourself will come in the picture. We will collectively be able to determine best solution to whether the market dynamics here. That's how I really look at it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that input. It's evolving, and we appreciate. Yeah, it is. This all comes back to risk mitigation, risk management, what companies are doing about how they manage that risk. Some companies do it through something as easy as safety stock, right? But then you make that financial trade-off. And am I tying up cash, right, to hold a bunch more safety stock? And what's my risk exposure? So,
yeah,
really good points.
Just one comment is everyone speaks and says this, right? The partnering. There is no doubt. Those are the words in everyone's mouth and mind. However, how you do it is really important. You don't invest into partnership when you have a problem. You invest into partnership when there are no problems, and it takes years to invest into it. And when you need it, you capitalize on it. So Woodward being 150 plus years company, me personally being with the company for almost 20 years, and we've known each other for a long time. These are the moments where we really rely on our key partners around these key issues. So if there is one thing that folks should take away is that invest into partnership and you don't really need it because the time and day will come, right?
Excellent points. Thank you. From the recycling side of things, so everyone's looking for more sources right now. Where else can I get my rare earth materials? Where else can I get my magnets? So, Sean, I can imagine you're seeing a flurry of intake of interested parties right now. Can you comment to that a bit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think literally on April 4th in the week following, it was just our phones were off the hook. But we see the demand from a few different perspectives, and we see some strategy changes from our partners as well. Some were really just buying spec magnets, and now they're seeing that they have to look deeper into their supply chain and go back to the raw material source to actually ensure that their supply chain is more secure. And so not only were they looking for sources of recycled rare earths for the recycling aspect, but for the diversification aspect. Then also they're looking to learn about our magnet partners that we work with to understand who else can they get magnets from as well. Because again, we are only making rare earth oxides. We're really a raw material supplier, and it still has to go through the magnet manufacturing process afterwards. And so how do they not only secure the raw materials, but then secure magnet supply outside of China was a key point that we started seeing. And so I think maybe one thing that we see quite a bit is how immature the overall supply chain is outside of China. It's not just mining, it's not just production of raw materials, it's not even just magnet production, but the steps in between metallization, alloy making. Those are two kind of gaps out there today that will hinder our ability to kind of create an ex-China supply chain that's not built out. And that's where we see that the rest of the Western world needs to kind of speed up on to create these supply chains, because we can create the material from a raw material perspective. There's mines in the US, there's mines in Australia, and there's recyclers like us. But then getting it to the point where a magnet user can use the raw materials is important to ensure that we have a secure supply chain.